that everybody I think is just so involved in, whether it's like really extremists who are conservative thinkers who are in some ways leveraging politics to exclude and possibly cause harm to trans people, or there's other people who are kind of doing the same thing by like you know not really having expansive ideas of what trans is or being very limited what trans is. So it's I think as a trans man myself, um I'm still at this point trying to figure it all out. And like, I think the best thing that is awesome is that there are a lot of transgender people themselves who are in a number of positions to fight back in a lot of ways, whether that's like in politics, and quite a few of my colleagues are now like, elected officials in many places, or whether that's in the academy, like it used to be myself and my other colleagues, or the technology industry, like I am. There's so many of us in so many positions of power that, even despite the kind of extremist, problematic bigotry that's kind of starting to run rampant, there's so much political force against it that I remain optimistic and positive that, um, yeah, this is the moment where the ideology is shifting, and there's always going to be some kind of turbulence in that process.
Welcome to episode 56 of People Are the Answer. I truly believe that people are the only answer to the world's many problems. I'm Jeffrey M. Zucker, a serial entrepreneur, here to learn how innovators are creating outsized transformational social impact. Today's episode features Dr. Kortney Ziegler, a social engineer, inventor, trans rights activist, and founder and CEO of WellMoney. Dr. Ziegler has accumulated multiple accolades, including an Innovation Award for commitment to social and economic justice for LGBT people in 2015 from Google and the San Francisco LGBT Center. Dr. Ziegler and I discuss his growing up in Compton, his journey as a trans man, getting multiple degrees, including the first Northwestern PhD in African American Studies, being a software entrepreneur, and much more. Here is Dr. Kortney Ziegler on People Are the Answer. Dr. Ziegler, thank you so much for joining me on People Are the Answer.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Great to have you. And it'd be great if you could just start off by telling our audience, where you're based and what your current role is.
Yeah, I'm currently actually based in South Africa. But right now I'm talking to you from the lovely city of New York. I'll be here. I'm here for some work. But my role right now is I am the CEO and founder of a crowdsourced gifting community called WellMoney. And I'm really excited to even later talk about that. But high level, it's just a platform where we help cover financial emergencies for about a third of Americans who can't pay for a $400 emergency if it happened in their life. So that's what we're trying to solve.
I love that. I think that's such an important thing. I'm excited to dig into that. In life in general, what would you say motivates you?
Man, that's a great question. I am a Sagittarius, so I feel like, uh,
Likewise.
oh, right on. So I don't like
Yeah.
let's have a lovely bonding moment. But I love our signs because I feel like I'm an innate kind of truth seeker in so many ways. And I think a lot of that wanting to know more about how to improve myself as a person, um, but also just how to, really make a contribution to the world. So all of those things motivate me. And I get really excited just for every single day. Like, man, what's going to happen today? I can't believe I continue waking up every day. I'm really blessed for that opportunity. So all of those things kind of I are I'm very grateful for in my life to have a source of motivation in that regard.
I love that positive outlook. Thank you for sharing that with us. And um, I'm curious, where did you grow up and what was it like there?
I grew up in Compton, 1980s Compton, California. For anybody who doesn't know where that is and has to understand the role of Compton and kind of like American pop culture, it's a city in southern Los Angeles, and yeah, that's it, I grew up in that part of a time where it used to be like a white suburb of LA, and then a lot of black folks started moving there, and a lot of different kind of political shiftings happening, and the influx of like drugs, the crack era. So all those things were happening in 1980s Compton. It really shaped who I am, um, because I grew up as a person who grew up with very little in terms of financial things, but very much so in terms of family, and because of like the socioeconomic situation of a 1980s Compton. We had neighbors watching out for each other and contributing to things to help each other, sustain lives and kind of continue living. So, um, man, I love it. I miss the 80s and 90s. I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my early 40s, and man, I miss like all of those things. But so that
I'm 35.
okay, that part of the um shaped who I am.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, obviously, 80s, 90s Compton has been depicted in a lot of films, and there's so much history there. But I'm sure living in it is just a million times different. Um, and I'm curious, when you were growing up, sort of, in this world that you were in, did you already have like interest in sort of giving back? Was there something going on in your community that made you feel the need to eventually give back, or is that something that came later?
I think it's something that's just been with me my whole life. Yeah, like again, just growing up in the time period that I did and having neighbors always looking out for one another. I was raised by my grandmother actually, because my mom suffers from mental illness and I had never met my father. And so my grandmother took over the reins of raising my sister and I, which I'm so deeply grateful for in my life. I think all of who I am, personality wise and desire to help otherwise, and also desire to also always try to improve my life and become a better person, a better Courtney every day. I attribute much of that to my grandmother who raised me. And so I think that person is one of the best people I ever met in my life to this day. And just really shaped me who I am. And I think in my family, a lot of my relatives, whether working for someone or you know not working for someone or going to the military or being on the police force, everybody in my family has tried to leverage their spaces to help others in some way. So that's really cool in my family. So I think it's just within all of us, because we were raised by my grandmother and their mother. So
Yeah, that's wonderful, and sounds like it was a huge, huge part of your life to have your grandmother around. I'm glad to hear that she was there for you, and um, I'm sure it wasn't easy though, and just in researching for this, I just was thinking about how horrific the attacks have been of late on various communities and races and genders, and especially on the trans community of late. It's made me sick, how political this things have become. Humans should be humans, and so I can only imagine how those things feel for those that are directly offended and or affected. And as a cisgendered white male, I don't know a lot about trans life experience, from growing through your transition to living in a society as a trans person. What can you share with our audience about your journey, and to humanize that experience more for those that maybe aren't directly familiar?
yeah, even as a cisgender white male, thanks for being aware. I think that the trans conversation has taken so many twists and turns over the past um, probably about a decade, and where I'm going to place myself in the larger movement, as an activist and as someone who's building companies and organizations directly designed to help trans people lead sustainable lives. Um, it's been a beautiful journey to see trans become part of a larger discourse in America, and that people are much more familiar and have family members who are educators in their space, and even me as a person, being a trans person in my own family and being an elder adult now, still being able to shape how people are understanding trans identities and those things. It is at the same time very disappointing and disheartening how politicized everything has become on all sides, I think, of political spectrums. It's like this weird obsession with trans people, that everybody, I think, is just so involved in, whether it's like really extremists who are conservative thinkers who are in some ways leveraging politics to exclude and possibly cause harm to trans people, or there's other people who are kind of doing the same thing by like you know um, not really having expansive ideas of what trans is, or being very limited what trans is. So it's I think, as a trans man myself, um, I'm still at this point trying to figure it all out. And like, I think the best thing that is awesome is that there are a lot of transgender people themselves who are in a number of positions to fight back in a lot of ways, whether that's like in politics, and quite a few of my colleagues are now like, elected officials in many places, or whether that's in the academy, like I it used to be myself and my other colleagues, or the technology industry, like I am. There's so many of us in so many positions of power that, even despite the kind of extremist, problematic bigotry that's kind of starting to run rampant, there's so much political force against it that I remain optimistic and positive that, um, yeah, this is the moment where the ideology is shifting, and there's always going to be some kind of turbulence in that process.
So yeah, thank you for sharing so much about your journey, and for those listening that want to be as helpful of allies as they can be to the trans community, do you have any suggestions for how to do that?
Yeah, a million suggestions. Things like what you're doing, asking questions. I think, again, what I'm seeing in media in particular, that all types of political identities are embroiled in some sort of ignorance about trans people. And I think that there still needs to be more conversations, and like from everybody. And I also think that there shouldn't be kind of a dominance of what trans is, and that only specific trans voices get to be the spokespeople. um I get it that there are leaders, and people need leaders, right? And some people need a person who's charismatic and communicate and connect with different communities to be a spokesperson. So I'm not saying that that's not what should happen. I think that there needs to be a continued diversity of voices, who are asking questions and also sharing stories and lived experiences, and having really strong patience with one another. I think that that's is something that's missing, um, in in the trans movement itself, as well as like any external forces that are kind of fighting against it. For example, um people still ask me to this day, like, oh, did your family, like, did they kick you out and all those things? Like, actually, no. My family in my entire life has been, for all of my queer identities or whatever, has been very supportive, and still very loving. And no one's ever like, there's been, still to this day, I'll sometimes have to correct people with pronouns, and I've been medically transitioned like 15 years now. So it's like, those, and I don't get mad at my family. I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna like, you're misgendering me, and like, even though it may be in that moment, but I have grace and compassion to be like, well, you did see me as a different person longer than any other person in my life, and your memories of that person are still valid and true. Is my goal to meet you with love and compassion in the ways that you meet me, to be like, I'm going to gently correct you, I'm going to nudge you. That I think is missing in a lot of conversations, and that I think will help to move things forward.
Yeah, there's not enough of that in the discussions where obviously you're coming purely from a place of love and and understanding and wanting to be understood.
Hmm.
Well, again, thank you for sharing that. And um, I think, with everything that's going on, I think a lot of us that are on the side of human rights are trying to be as allied as possible.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'd love to dig in a little bit more to how you got where you are. I saw that you got a film degree from UC Santa Cruz. You minored in computer science. What took you there? What was that experience like?
My entire life, I thought I was going to be a famous filmmaker. And so I wanted to tell stories. And when I was going to college or applying for college, I wanted to go to NYU or UCLA, because NYU is where Spike Lee was and I've done work with. And then UCLA is like where, USC or UCLA in LA, if you're going to become a Hollywood filmmaker, right? None of those schools let me in. So I ended up going to UC Santa Cruz, which was better because everything happens for you in life, right? I'm glad that I went there. I still was able to, and I entered as a computer science major, and I'm dyslexic and had trouble with the math part. And then I was like, actually, I just want to be a storyteller, anyways. And so I was able to get my film degree and still did computer science work. And now I work in computers, right? So like, I thought I was going to be a famous Hollywood filmmaker, and it was like, F computer science. But I ended up back here. So, and I've made some films along the way, and it's been beautiful. And I'm glad I'm not in Hollywood because I don't know what I would do actually right now. That's not the space that I would want to be in. But yeah, that's how I kind of ended up where I've ended up. I think life has just been like, this is what you're supposed to do. Um, these are the skills you're supposed to acquire along the way, and you're going to make really awesome things with these variety of skills that you know I've been it's very blessed to acquire. So
And I saw that you went to San Francisco State, and then Northwestern. After that, you got multiple masters, and then eventually a PhD. Can you talk about what led you on that path of kind of higher education?
yeah, many things. I put myself through school, so there was a way to always take care of myself, right? It's like, okay, if I go to school and you get the degrees and you do the right thing, then like you'll have a job, right, in the future. If you don't become a successful filmmaker or whatever. So wanting to do the right thing really pushed me. But more than that, honestly, is I just love the opportunity to learn new things, and I think school was something that really came easy to me, despite having a reading disability. And yeah, I just really enjoyed learning. But I never imagined that I would eventually go get a PhD. I think it's just going to school and then um, finishing college, and was like, oh my God, what do I do? And then a professor's like, you should get a master's degree, and like you have some ideas that you should really articulate and think and contribute to a field of knowledge. And it's like, I can do that. And then I just continued, and it was really awesome to get to that level of a PhD, and um, have read the work of scholars that I admire, and then getting to work my way up and like actually writing and being published in books with the scholars that like I would study with, and like, well, that was really cool.
Yeah,
um, yeah, that was
that
way
must
cool.
be that must be really really rewarding, and it's really cool to have had that opportunity and to seize it.
Hmm. Definitely.
And so I saw you were the first person to hold a PhD in African American Studies from Northwestern.
Yeah. um, that happened by awesome chance. I had finished my master's at San Francisco State, and I went to University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And it just wasn't working out for me. I just wasn't feeling that program. So within like the first 6 months, I was like, I got to get out of here. It was in rural Illinois. I'm from a city. It was in the snow. It was the first time I lived in snow in my life in the rural Midwest. So it was just a lot of things that I wasn't vibing with there. And then I saw that Northwestern was launching a program for their first year. And I was like, well, maybe I should apply to that. Like, there's a lot of people whose work I'm actually using for my future dissertation at that university, anyways. So I applied, and it was part of their first 5 students that they let in. And it was a difficult time for me, professionally, personally, being at a really conservative private school, coming from California schools, like liberal California schools, with hippies and stuff, and then going to the almost the opposite of it was a lot. But that propelled me to like want to finish and get out of there. So that was a lot of with the first. um, yeah, anything is a motivator. Like, it doesn't have to be good or bad. So that's just what happened with my story.
And I'm sure that was tough, but I'm sure that you learned an unbelievable amount from it, and it's part of making you who you are.
Heck yeah, definitely. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, everything was for me, so it was a great experience. Now I get to be like, I was the first person. There's clout in that, and also beyond the ego clout, leaving a legacy at a school like Northwestern. Um, that a black trans person is the first person to have this degree, that you always have to be like, everybody's still like, oh, who was the first person in this new program? Me. So what does that mean, when we talk about success and also sustaining trans lives and trans legacies? So it's cool nonetheless. But I definitely enjoy that title.
And throughout your time in education, were you making films?
Yes, yes. Thank you for asking that. I made Still Black, a portrait of Black trans men, a feature length documentary about Black trans men while I was writing my dissertation exams at Northwestern. So that was that. And then before that, I had made quite a number of short experimental films about like myself and gender identity and sexuality and blah, 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 stuff like that. And then that was really cool because they did get to screen at a number of film festivals and, be placed in archives and things like that. Um, so yeah, I eventually did become a filmmaker storyteller with a successful film that's gotten to screen all over the world and continues to be bought and sold and taught and like it's quite amazing. But yeah, I wrote and produced and directed that film when I was turning 27 years old and my second year of my PhD, studying for my exams to go become a candidate.
I'm sure it was a very busy time in your life.
Very busy, but it was great to have an artistic outlet as opposed to you know writing papers and reading books and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean to me, film is one of the best ways to grab people's attention, to create empathy, to humanize issues, and it seems like you were really grasping onto those things and utilizing them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. That's why I wanted to be a storyteller because you do have this medium that's able to, like you said, humanize people, paint a different picture, provide different perspectives, have voice, sound. Like I think um the camera is one of the most fascinating inventions I think ever. I'm just like sometimes my mind is just blown that you can record actual someone else's how they see life through their own eyes with something like with a piece of lens with like like stoner thoughts. So just going deep circles like wow, like oh my god. So um yeah, I think that's also provides to my love of filmmaking as a younger person. I hope to get back to it as an adult, but we will see.
Well, after school, it looks like you went to found quite a few different projects. Uh, Trans Hack, among others. Would love to just hear about that one first, and then some of the others as well, and sort of where those took you.
Transhack was launched in 2013, and basically it was a it's called a hackathon, which is like a moment where folks of all kind of skill sets, technical, non-technical, thoughtful, all these different practices come together, kind of put their heads together and build software in a rapid, short amount of time to like really get out in the world, whether it's working or not. And at that time in my life, I had finished my PhD and I found it really, really hard to find a job. It was the first time in my life that I wasn't in school and that I wasn't getting student loans or on a fellowship or anything. And I was like, man, I got to get a job. And I had a hard time finding a job as a professor. Excuse me. So, man, I had nothing. And so I was like, but I'm living in, San Francisco, California, and like the tech industry is right there. I was like, well, how can I involve myself in that space? Um, and so I just started like doing high level research about that industry. And I was like, well, there's nothing about trans people. Um, Trans technology would be awesome. And so getting all these ideas. And so use my research skills and just started reaching out to people and getting support and putting my name out there and just built an organization focused on building software to help uh, enhance the lives of trans people, whether that was like find jobs or food or money or education. And so it shifted the technology industry, kind of blew it up in terms of now we have policies about bathrooms and trans, different surgical support, like being able to like take time off and like all of these things that the trans hack has really become a catalyst for so much in the industry. So many trans technologists now, so many trans technology organizations now. Software, actual working software. We built working software in like 48 hours. That I was reading something today because I'm applying for a number of fellowships and grants for my company, and someone recently this week mentioned Transact as the academic publication and just how like there's a project now that's in operation that was like spawned from a Transact event and that they've been building for still enhancing 10 years, just iterating on this software. And I was like, yeah, that's amazing. Even I don't know this. Like it was literally just by chance that I saw this doing research for an application this morning. So um Transact was awesome. Yeah, it's quite amazing. I'm very blessed and humbled to been the vehicle that the idea came through, and really amazed, impressed at how many. Again, we have trans, like well-funded venture companies now that I honestly know that has been part of the Transact trajectory. So
It's got to be tremendously rewarding to see the value that that has added, even a decade later.
yeah, hell yeah. Because then me as a trans person too, like it's like, okay, well, there are things that are gonna make my life easier. There's like easier for me to navigate businesses now because there's so much more conversation about trans entrepreneurs and things like that. So it's made my life better. It's also made my life better spiritually because again, I'm just like, wow, it's beautiful and overwhelming and humbling to be able to participate in something I think so life changing for myself and other people and industries at large.
Absolutely, and thanks so much for sharing that. And I know you also founded some other organizations like Aerial Spaces and BSM.co. Would love to hear some more about those as well.
Yeah, man, aerial spaces. Man, that's aerial spaces is a tough one because it was something that I was building with a co-founder after Transact. I actually met them through a Transhack event, and we worked together to throw like Transhack Chicago together. Tiffany Michael's her name, and we got together like in 2015, and we're like, let's start a company together. Like what? Late 2014. And we really wanted to at that moment like live video in the browser was becoming a thing, and we lived in two different cities, so we'd always use Google Hangouts. Skype was popular too, and still to this day, video and browser, we're using it right now. It's like, it's just now still like, it could be so much better still at this point. But this was like at the beginning of it, and Aerial Spaces was a tool for us to be doing just what we're doing right now, a browser-based tool, video in the browser with different things that you can, widgets you can plug in to make immersive video experience. And we were building that for 5 years, and it was before COVID-19. We had a very difficult time selling it. We got venture capital from Bloomberg. Actually, they were the first people who were like, okay, we see the future of video too. Like we're gonna give it to you guys because you guys we believe something is happening. And it's like, yes, I'm telling you, we see the future. People are going to have virtual conferences in the browser. It's like, why would you want to have a virtual conference in the browser? Well, it's because not everyone can pay lots of money to go to a conference, and some people want to have the conference from home. Um, and this is where it's going. One of our first customers was a major online conference, Women's Freedoms Day conference that we had. That the universe, luckily, we built the software for that. And then so many people were like, "Wow, I can't believe I was just in a conference in my, on my computer. I can go to different rooms and stuff." So that was Aerial Spaces. We got investment money and we ran out of money in 2019, and then we in March of 2019, and then in December 2019, everything went virtual conferences. And so it's like one of those entrepreneur stories where you're just like, sometimes you're a little bit too early and you may not get people to buy into it. And then they need catastrophic global pandemics to happen for them to be like, this is what you're talking about. And now, yeah, so many companies have been successful post that. But I'm glad because actually, I'm glad of what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be doing well if I was still building. I may be richer though.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I'm sure it was frustrating on some level, but I'm glad that what transpired sent you on your current path that you seem suited with and happy with.
mhm.
And I saw that Aerial Spaces, you partnered with GitHub and the White House to deliver digital education to 20,000 students from underserved communities.
Yes, this was before GitHub was bought by Microsoft, and they were looking to expand like computer literacy to underserved communities. And so the way that they wanted to do that was, again, this before virtual conferences were like, you should do a virtual conference, and so like give live virtual online education to people. And why you should do it in the browser is because it's nobody has to download sophisticated software and be, that um, financially, I mean, not financially, but computer literate from the beginning. Like a lot of people can use internet browsers, and so they partnered with us. So, and we used our software for them to deliver education to, 20,000 people, and it was great. And it was a White House initiative, so that was pretty awesome. Yeah, Aerial Spaces it was a successful startup. It just we ran out of money. Startups tend to do. And then because we ran out of money, like we were really considering, like, man, like I said, it was just we were that moment too early.
I always say, I've said it on the podcast many times, you learn more from your failures than your successes. And not to say that it was a failure, it depends how you define that word. But myself, I've certainly had a lot of those and have taken a lot of the learnings into future endeavors.
Oh yeah, exactly. You're very spot on. Is that in hindsight, it's like, yeah, it really solidified it actually strengthened me, because it's like, well, if I can see the future, then I know that I am a visionary, and that like the ideas that I have actually, sometimes they may be a little bit too early. And I think in my trajectory, my history of life, I've been able to launch awesome things, and many things come after that and open doors for others. Um, it's open doors for me because it just reminded me that I can build anything that will be useful to a lot of people. So it's going to be another idea. It's going to happen. It's always be something else that I can, build and really find excitement and joy in it at the same time.
Love it. And while you were at Aerial Spaces and while you were doing that project, you also founded Appolition. Something that I found really heartwarming. As somebody in the cannabis industry, as a drug policy advocate trying to end the war on drugs. As someone that preaches that it's crucial for anyone involved in the cannabis industry to be giving back and help people get out of jail and make sure no one else is going to jail for this plant. I was excited to see this in your history, and would love if you could just kind of share what Appolition was and what the story is.
Yeah, first of all, right on for being in that spot and really encouraging people in the cannabis industry to help others, because it's wild. Like I said, I'm currently in New York City right now. I'm looking out of the city out of my window, and um, I was here last year before it was actually legal. And like last year, like it was like semi legal or something here, and like people were selling it on the streets and stuff. And I'm like, wow, California people are still in jail for like stuff that, like, I literally can go into multiple states in this country and just they don't even check my ID sometimes. Like, just buy weed. It's very important to give back. And with that idea, my mother is actually incarcerated. From She suffers from, she's paranoid schizophrenic, and so she's been mentally ill my whole life. And while I was building Aerial Spaces and we were on that grind, getting that money, I saw an organization called National Bailout that was doing a Mother's Day bailout, where they would go traditional fundraising to get Black women out of jail, who couldn't afford bail money. I thought that was so freaking awesome, and it really touched my heart. Now and then more, and I was like, how can I help them make more money? Like, because they had already made like $1 million, like door to door, email, basic stuff, like basic nonprofit fundraising. And I was like, man, if you had some sort of software that was like just taking people's money automatically, like you could like build so much more money. And so I was really heavily into Twitter at that moment, and I sent a tweet. It was like, man, if there was like a spare change roundup, they'll automatically take your spare change and bail somebody out of jail. Would people like join that? Because the spare change model at that moment was booming in terms of investing and saving. And it's like, well, why can't we just invest, save, collect, redistribute, whatever. Um, and people were like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I'll join that." And so I was like, "Done. I'm gonna go build the software right now." So like, took 3 months with my co-founder at the time. All of us who were building aerial spaces did the building and design of Appolition. We were up and running in 2.5 months, and within a year and a half, we raised $1 million in fair change. Got thousands of people out of jail. It was awesome. Yeah, it was an amazing journey. COVID hit and people started being indoors at that point. A lot of our money that we were coming in was getting from, travel and entertainment and stuff outside in the world. Online shopping, yes, that changed. And then the majority of the money was coming from Amazon purchases then. And that was at a moment of time where police brutality was like, right, all over the world, protests against it and like incarceration and all these things, but Amazon was funding ICE, and I felt as a CEO, I was like, like morally, it felt weird to be taking in money from a company that is actively incarcerating people. And it's, not to say that we weren't doing that before, because every company doesn't have, I mean, a lot of companies have blood on their hands, but it was hard to justify. Um, I felt that there was other ways to help people rather than helping Amazon, if that makes sense. So I made the decision to sunset Appolition, but we went out on a high note, and we did so much amazing work. Again, helped other people build technologies to make mass incarceration less stressful on families and people who are incarcerated. Um, and yeah, just raising so much money and getting accolades and awards was really cool for that too.
I really appreciate your work. Thank you so much for that. I mean, the criminal justice system is such a mess. There's so much work that needs to be done, and every bit of work just helps move us in the right direction and helps change the lives, even if we're not changing the laws in some specific moment. If you're changing the life of one person that really shouldn't be incarcerated, then it goes a really long way.
Exactly, exactly.
Did you mentioned that your mother being incarcerated, was that a big motivator for you in this?
Definitely. I think a lot of Black Americans, Americans in general, but Black Americans in particular, have such an intimate relationship with mass incarceration, whether we've been incarcerated ourselves or have an immediate relative who's incarcerated. So, having a mother who is behind bars and who's not eligible for bail is a different situation. But it's still part of a larger problem. And even me being able to do some small contribution to help, chip away at a larger problem. Um, I felt, yeah, like it was my obligation, but also it was really really cool to get thousands and thousands of people to rally together to like give money to people who they have no idea who they are. There was no stories needed or anything. It was just like, you're just gonna give this money, and you're gonna you're gonna spend normally. We're gonna automatically use this amazing software, take money from you, and we're gonna give it to somebody who you don't even know who they are, and they're gonna go home. How do you feel about that? So like, that was really awesome.
Yeah, it really was. And again, thank you. If you're enjoying this episode, I would greatly appreciate if you could review, like, comment, or subscribe on your favorite platforms. Your engaged support goes a long way in helping the show grow and getting our impactful guests heard. Now back to the show. I want to start digging in a little bit to some of your current endeavors. Saving WellMoney for last. I saw that you are a race and technology practitioner fellow at Stanford. Can you talk about how you ended up in that role and what it entails?
Yeah, it's a Stanford. Their Center for Digital Race and Technology. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Um, does a lot of work at providing resources and funding for people doing all types of work and across technology and digital and civil rights and things like that. They're really trying to do positive and impactful work to make sure people are least oppressed and taken advantage of by governments and technologies and things like that. So with my work with building Transac and Appolition, and now doing WellMoney and also my scholarly work, I was actually asked to apply to this fellowship by a colleague who a Stanford colleague, who was my professor at Northwestern. Which goes back to,
Wow,
I think, earlier when I was like, man, now I like write books with people. But like
it's
one of my,
amazing.
yeah, like reached out and was like, now Dr. Ziegler, we want you here to, to use the Stanford resources to, and Stanford wasn't a school that I applied to, but they probably would not have accepted me anyways. But now I get to be a fellow and have a different title. So like that's really cool. And my work there
That's
was
amazing.
really, yeah, right. Hella rad. My work there was really being able to launch, to really think of conceptually what would come after Appolition, and it gave me an opportunity to access, their philanthropy network, which is Stanford has a large philanthropic network, and their ideas about giving and those resources to really conceive of WellMoney, which is what I'm building now. So um, I get the freedom to uh, expand on my ideas while also being able to leverage the Stanford name and add legitimacy to, to my own research and quest of getting money for my entrepreneurial endeavors, which is really, really awesome. But also getting to build along amazing, amazing scholars. Like my colleagues are doing work in AI and like, you know, things that like I'm not doing. And I think it's so rad that like I get to learn from them as well. So
Yeah, it sounds like a great experience, and led you to where you are now, having founded WellMoney and acting as the CEO. We briefly mentioned it earlier, but would love if you could just again tell us what WellMoney is and who it's helping.
So it's a membership based community where people pay a sliding scale between $1 to $5 to access the ability to crowdsource money from the group, as well as exclusive community events, financial literacy events, education resources in that regard. And like I said, it took me a year to do research and talk to people and really see if this is something that would work, because the initial pushback was, and to this day, people are like, "Aren't people just going to take the money and run? Like, aren't people going to like steal from it?" Because everybody who signs up, sorry, my eye, everybody who signs up has to again contribute to the pool of funds, and there are people who may never ever need financial support because they're wealthy individuals or people who are financially stable who are contributors to real money, and there are people who are like, man, I know I'm gonna need $50 tomorrow. I can only give $1 to the pool, but I'm gonna need $50 maybe. I'm pretty sure because I usually need $50. So knowing how to, it's like, well, how is that gonna work? And people were like, yeah, they're gonna take the money and run. And I just did for the past 2 weeks. I've been analyzing the data, the user data that we have. We've been up and running since last October. We had our first 1,000 users. Wanting to go really, really slow earlier this year.
Congrats.
Thank you. And we've distributed like $20,000 from a pool of people, like for the past like 6 months now. $20,000 in increments of no larger than $150. So that's really, really, really cool. And 94% of the people who have actually gotten money have come back even before they've gotten help, before even like others have gotten help, have come back and given more money to the pool of funds. So if like I only gave $1 today and then I got $150 next month, that I'm 94% more likely to give $2 maybe the next month or something. And I think that's quite amazing, that we're actually proving the naysayers wrong. That if you meet people where they are and you don't require them to perform some sort of worthiness of being poor, and please give me money because I'm proving to you that I'm poor, kind of thing. That human beings will more than likely be honest about how they're spending money and be very grateful, and come back and show that gratitude by paying it forward. So that's really, really awesome about Well Money. And I'm excited to use that data not only to grow the company more because we're fundraising now, but also to provide, like, in terms of scholarship and ideologies about philanthropy, where there's still like this traditional thing, ways of thinking that we have to know who we're giving to. We have to know, yes, it's great to know how the money is spent, but we should be trusting of other humans that we know if they say they're going to use it for something, more than likely they will. So that's WellMoney, and I'm excited to grow it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
here we are.
I mean, I think people tend to be better than the average individual gives the general population credit for. And previously on the podcast, I had on Tess Murphy from Kiva.org, and they're similarly doing crowdfunded loans. Different structures, different things. I think maybe on the larger scale, but similarly, I asked her like, what is the payback rate, and it was 97%. And it's like
Hmm.
when you're helping people, they want to return the favor, or at least be respectful of that.
Yep, and that's good to hear. Kiva was a great model to look at. Because WellMoney is not loans, it's just gifts. So no one ever has to pay anything back. But the fact that people still stay on the platform and be like, well, I'm going to figure out how to give that another dollar. That's 100% increase like of their giving. So I'm glad that like Kiva has this loan data, and that WellMoney has this gifting data, which is like, um, all of this data is like definitely coming together, being like, yes, you're very right. If humans, if you meet them with respect, dignity, um, have allow them to be autonomous human beings, and where you're not uh, dictating how the money should go and like micromanaging how the money should go, that high 90% of people will do the right thing, and that's beautiful. And that when a company like mine is going out like getting money, like people still don't hear that. They like don't truly understand that if people generally do the right thing. So
It's hard to believe it without seeing it with your own eyes, or without seeing the depth of data, but it's true. And I've found it to be true with a variety of organizations that I work with that do similar things, where it's like people actually act better than you expect them to.
yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people that are giving others the impression about how people act are the loud minority in reality, and not, I think the vast majority of people are good people trying to do good for themselves and the world and their family.
Exactly. And yeah, that's what I believe. So I'm glad others believe the same. So
Absolutely. I mean, people are the answer. Uh, so well, money. Walk me through the process if I'm someone in need, and I check out your platform.
yeah, so if you would like to become a new Well Money member, and you're in need, you sign up. There's a 1 month waiting period, and that may seem like a long time. I was like, I need $150. Yes, that may seem, but like that is implemented to build trust. Everybody has to, as soon as you become a member, you have to contribute that day to helping someone else. So you're paying it forward automatically. And then you're able to, once a month has passed and you've contributed to the pool to help somebody else, you're able to get help. And yeah, and so you'll submit a request. It's confidential. It's pretty simple. You choose if you need it for housing, transportation, utilities, or other. And I think like 50% was like for people to stay in their homes. It's like, man, I need $100 so they don't cut off and it's just like wild. Like the small amount of money that people need that will change their lives. Um, so that's quite amazing. And yeah, you submit a confidential request. We get that money to you within 48 hours. And mainly the only um, precursor to, that is making sure you're like have helped someone else in the community, and everything's anonymous. Completely, nobody knows who's getting the money. Nobody knows somebody's name. Only the Well Money team knows people's names, and I think that that's pretty unique and innovative as well because um, no one has to know which city anybody's in, like what they look like, their race, their gender, none of that. The only thing that the members know is post someone getting $100. We have what we call gratitude notes, and when someone logs into the platform, they can see where other people, after getting money, have written a thank you to the community, and that's quite fascinating because like a GoFundMe or something, you have to like write that note before, like, please give me some money. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm this. I'm a black something something, and then that already like I think in some ways produces bias, right? Because it's like I want to give to, but with Well Money, everybody's giving to anybody. So That's what's really cool, and it's working. So it's awesome.
How do you attract people to the platform? How do how do you market?
When we launched in October, it was primarily personal invitation, and then we invited a first 100 people, and those people got to have a referral link and invite their community members. And then we did Google advertising, and that's where we're finding most of our contributors through targeted ads. We're also leveraging mutual aid communities like Facebook communities and Reddit groups and things like that. And also MySpace as a scholar and entrepreneur, really taking advantage of the high network folks in my network to not only be ambassadors for WellMoney, which they are, but really to really say my name and the work that I'm doing. So we have different channels in which we're going after the people who may never need money, the wealthy folks or middle class, whatever you want to call them, and the people who like, man, I need $50, and if I don't get it, I'm going to do a cash advance app or a payday loan something, but I can instead do well money. So
Yeah, what an incredible alternative to offer. And you've told us sort of where things are right now. What is your vision of the future for this platform?
I really wanted to be, kind of one of the top redistribution companies in America. Like, I think that every year that 1/3 gets larger of people, and that number of can afford an emergency under 400. I think it's now $500 with inflation. I want Will Money to be like, we're not a government entity, but we can do the work of distributing like billions of dollars, right? There's so much money. Like, when I think of the pitch deck and giving, right? When I think of philanthropic giving, it's like at least $6 billion informal and formal giving in America, and all sorts of, whether that's giving to somebody on the street or giving directly through a charity or giving at the store, putting the change in the thing. It's like $6.5 billion in total, high level. We can just get 1% of that giving. I think that Well Money will do a significant bit of work in America helping people. So that's the main goal, and I'm really excited to do it. It's a different journey, like I said, like trying to convince people that people are generally good, and also showing people that yeah, you can have a financially sustainable model that actually helps people.
So with WellMoney, a sustainable financial model, that's something I wanted to talk a little bit more about. Something that I have preached a little bit on the podcast is just this almost unnecessary distinction these days between nonprofit and for profit, when I really think what we need are sustainable organizations and models that give back and create positive impact. And so, I'm not the type that judges an entity on whether or not they are for or nonprofit. It's more about the impact they're creating and are they sustainable. But that said, what is the model for WellMoney in that respect?
We are a for-profit public benefit corporation, and I decided to intentionally go that way so that we can get money from all types of entities and not feel that there's a restriction of what type of money we can bring on, because there's like exactly what you're saying. Like, I think there's a number of entities in the world that want to do better and want to redirect money to folks. And I didn't want to put a cap on how we can bring that in. Um, a lot of people have actually asked me, why are you not a nonprofit? And I was like, does it really matter? Like, it's, again, I know some nonprofits that are about, giving money to or helping to our charities, and 90% of the money that comes in is for overhead and for the nonprofit. And so how much are they actually giving to help someone else? And the well money model, like, even when people sign up initial members, we make it very clear that our business model is based on, we're going to keep like 50% of this dollar that you're giving. And we have to, because we need to operate. But we actually, we can keep less of that dollar. We want to give as much of that dollar to a person who needs the dollar, rather than us like having these heavily inflated costs that I think a lot of nonprofits have that we don't. So as long as we're doing good, that's why I chose a C corp.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that and respect that. And I think that, a lot of nonprofits spend a lot of their time trying to raise money instead of working on their cause. And obviously, there are instances where it makes a lot of sense to be for a nonprofit, but I think especially in a use case like this, a financial model. It just makes a lot more sense to have wider access to capital, and to be able to create something sustainable. So, yeah, definitely appreciate that.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. And there's a lot of UBI guaranteed income programs and stuff, and there some of them are registered as nonprofits. And I feel like those are my partners in the space, and we're all trying to figure out how to just take money from one space and give it to another space, and I can partner with them, because there is an influx of money to those kind of pilot programs that they like maybe launch for 6 months, and like then there's a cliff, people fall off. Like a WellMoney can come in that is not a nonprofit, and partner with these orgs that have already that have, and we can put our heads together and do something, in different with different legal structures, but have a similar goal and a final outcome.
You mentioned earlier a potential desire to get back into film later in life. Is that something that you've thought much about? Are there any plans in the works?
Um, Not at the moment. I want to. My partner's in the industry, and so it'd be nice to do something with her. But yeah, I don't know. I want to be more creative in terms, and I want to make a movie. I think I would love to make something about my life one day, or something non-fictional. But um, man, I really want to. I'm gonna be honest about that. I don't know when that's gonna happen.
Yeah, keep me posted. Definitely, would love to see where you go with that. And um, we talked a little bit about your work in trans activism, and um, you know, are there any particular resources that you think that listeners would find of value? Or is there anything else you want to add about sort of the issues facing the community today?
I guess there's so much, like a plethora of things that are happening, that I just want. I guess my one thing would be is that people use like really good judgment, and stray away from um, very biased, bigoted opinions. I think that there's so many conversations that are happening, like even like whether it's legislature that's happening, or even like the whole Bud Light controversy that's happening right now, and like influencers and things like that. Just people to use their heads and common sense and be respectful, and seek out a multitude of opinions. Everybody's not right, and there's a lot of wrong people out there. But me as a person, I don't want to really tell people like you should think a certain way, you should do these certain things, but also just there's so many, again, amazing trans people that are providing direct commentary and input, for a number of things. And I would actually recommend one of my colleagues is Amara Jones. They were just one of the Times influential people this year. Black trans woman from trans, she does trans slash media, so very heavily involved in like media conversations about trans people. So I would recommend actually going to that resource.
Awesome. We'll be sure to include that in the links. And you've done some really incredible, impactful work. Honestly, it's inspiring how much you've been giving back throughout all that you've done and all that you've been through. And I think that whether it's Appolition or WellMoney or otherwise, there's tons of people whose lives you have just directly affected. Do you have any story of when that sort of came back to you when you realized, oh wow, I really helped this person?
Yeah, I think when I see the impact of my work, um, like in so many different types of manifestations, like even with Transact, like there are quite a few people that I met who never worked in technology and now have been in the industry for, Transact was in 2013, like about 10 years now, making great salaries, challenging the data that says trans people are heavily unemployed, right? So there's like, and I get to witness that. I'm currently based in South Africa, which I mentioned earlier, but I come back to the United States like every 2 months, and I'm here for work in NYC. But I'm leaving to fly to Texas on Wednesday, Thursday, and participating in Black Trans. There's a conference about Black trans women, for Black trans women and Black trans men, like activists, and it's been going on for like a decade now. And they have an award in my name, which is really really awesome. So I get to see that. I get to go see this award that's been given to others who's in my name. So, and again, I'm in my early 40s. I'm not that old, so it's nice to be like witness like the legacy of my work as a still living person who's um, growing into like further into middle age and things like that. And one day we'll be an old man and be like, I remember. So I get to witness those things living right now, and that's quite amazing.
That's incredible. Well, congratulations on that much earned honor. I'm sure it'll be great to see that given out. Um, and over our discussion, some people have come up, like colleagues and professors, that have been really invaluable to your experience. Is there anyone in particular that you want to sort of give a shout out as a mentor to you that's been impactful?
My grandmother, I think that like still remains the most impactful human. But I also would give shouts out to like all of my college professors, like Dr. Jennifer Brody would be one who actually put me onto the Stanford Fellowship. Um, it's quite a number of people in my life that, even if I don't name drop them now, have like I can turn to today and request help. I need to do that more. I'm still learning how to be like, man, I need a mentor. I still need someone, and to impart wisdom towards me that like I don't really go seek out sometimes. So
Asking for help can
yeah,
definitely be tough, especially
yeah,
when you're someone that is very independent. So,
yeah, exactly. I need a
yeah.
nod.
I failed to ask earlier, but it just came to mind as a curiosity. What brought you to South Africa?
I had went for my first time right before it was like the end of aerial spaces, and like my founder relationship broke up in like March 2019, and then in November 2019, I had a personal breakup in my life, and I was just all over the place, and I felt like there was a lot of like new beginnings happening in my life. And a colleague of mine was like, I live in South Africa now, you should come and visit. And I was like, I've never been, I should go. And I went and I met my partner, and I've just been going back and forth ever since. And then decided to stay a little bit longer term. And so, yeah, that's how I just life took me there. Like for no reason, I never even thought that it would be somewhere that I would spend a significant portion of my life. But the world was like, you should go to South Africa. And I was like, I should go. And I went and I stayed. Like,
That's awesome.
so,
It's cool to see
yeah.
those, the universe sort of bringing those things together. And if you'd like, you can ask me a question now.
Yes, I would like to learn more about the work that you do in cannabis, and like how did you end up there?
So, I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, where drugs were demonized, and all I was taught is just that they're wrong and not much beyond that. And so, went to school in Boston after that. And, when I was living in Chicago, I finally tried cannabis. And I was like, well, one, I enjoyed it. And two, I was just like, why has this been demonized? Like, I just don't get it. This is so, it's generally helpful and relatively harmless, etc. And so I just started doing a lot of research and learning more and more about it. And at this time, the legal adult use industry was starting to come together, and I was looking for new business opportunities. And a business partner and I saw what was going on here and decided let's get into that space. Let's invest as sort of a learning mechanism for how we wanted to go entrepreneurially. And quickly though, thankfully I was surrounding myself with some good people, and I quickly learned about the incredible injustices of the war on drugs. And from where I grew up, the only all I really knew was like, oh, drugs are bad. And I started to learn about, one, the incredible disproportionate enforcement by race, and two, just there's people in jail for this herbal medicine, like, and just that it's been a tool for racism and beyond, etc. So bottom line, I got just really sickened by it. It hurts me to think of all the people that have had to get inserted into the system, and that I've been privileged to not. And so, continued entrepreneurial endeavors, but really started to dedicate a lot of my time to drug policy and criminal justice reform. I've been on the board at Marijuana Policy Project since 2017, and we've changed a lot of laws in that time, fortunately. Um, and So over the last like year or two, I've transitioned out of most of the day-to-day operations. My business partner Mike has been amazing in taking those over, and my real interactions with the space have been in drug policy and criminal justice. And um, it's a plant that I really believe in. I believe in the power of it to help people. I've seen it, help people all over the world, whether it's mental health, physical health, or otherwise. And just to know that there's people trying to make money on this and that there's still people going to jail for it. It's just something that, I don't want to stop until it's not the case anymore. I hate that level of injustice for something that is like a healing medicine. So that's the quick version.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great that yeah, there are people like you who are helping and can put together really significant resources to impact people's lives. Because yeah, it's a wild space. Even me being from California and a cannabis consumer, and just being witness to being able to like vote and whether to like make it recreation in California. And I've had a medical card like for like when I was like a much younger person in my life, California. But yeah, just seeing the explosion of this industry, this multi-billion-dollar industry, and I was like, man, there's still people in certain states that like are incarcerated, are people who will die in prison. People like even, um, yeah, it's just like so. It's a weird space that we're in. That there's so much wealth and opportunity for a number of folks in an industry. Um, but man, like this conflicting mass incarceration problem, like how do we solve that? And how do we prevent other people from being a victim, and figuring out laws like why can this state have it and then if you're over here you can't have it, and then your life in prison. Like so yeah, definitely for the work that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's honestly mind-boggling. I've been lobbying in my original home state of South Carolina for many years, trying to pass medical cannabis there, and it's just makes me sick that there's all these people suffering there that it could help. There's people that are addicted to opioids that could at least substitute some of those with cannabis, if not replace them. And it's literally going to save lives. And it's among some other issues that are in public discourse right now. It's just absurd to me that things that should just be human rights are still in the discussion.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm not going to stop fighting. And it also introduced me to just the entire mess of our criminal justice system, and has pushed me to get even more engaged in a wider criminal justice angle. And um, there's a lot of work to be done, but been it's been great to see and meet all of the incredible people that are working to push us in the right direction. And so I have a lot of faith in our future.
Yeah, definitely. So it's all we can have is faith. Faith is very important to me in my life, so I have a lot of faith too.
So if everything were to end tomorrow for you, what are you most proud of?
um if by ending means my transition to the next realm of
Yeah,
whatever it
let's say
is.
that.
Yeah. I would want people to at least I would want to I feel fine with the impact that I've made in life. I know that I've helped, if not like quite a few people, myself becoming a better person, and I know that that's a good thing. um so yeah, I'm just really I think if you all were in tomorrow, I'm pretty satisfied. I think I've taken my life by the horns and really I live every day to the fullest. I really embrace the only thing that is now is this what we have in this whatever moment, and really just trying to be a better, again, kind, less stressed out human being.
I can definitely appreciate that, and that leads us into the last big question that I ask. I ask every guest, if you could snap your fingers and fix one thing in the world, what would it be, and how do you think that change would reverberate?
um, I would actually like I man, now dealing in the financial space, I wish everybody had access to wealth and luxury. Like that would be my. I think we all as humans deserve jewels and gold and nice things and less work, and it would be awesome if everybody could experience that because it is nice. And like I would change the world where there wouldn't be this. We wouldn't have to pay money to feel better and less sick in life. That's what I think. That's what I would do.
I love that. I mean, it's finances are such an incredible barrier in our world, and we have a world that is abundant enough to take care of everyone, and what a better place it would be if we did.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, I've loved talking to you, so inspired by all of your work and your efforts to give back. How can those listening help support you and your impact?
Yeah, you can join WellMoney at WELL hyphen money.com. You can also, even if you don't join, there's a link at the top where you can just give to our emergency fund to help somebody. We are not a nonprofit, so it is not a tax deductible gift, but it is a gift nonetheless. So, just make it less than $600, guys. Not a big deal if you want to. But yeah, I think that that's the most important right now. I'm not huge on social media or anything like that, so I wouldn't say follow me or anything like that. But just really, that would be a great way to support the work by helping me help others right now. Because like I said, WellMoney's fundraising, so it'll be great if people, would point me in direction of any type of resources like that. And it would also be great if there were anybody would love my support in helping to build whatever they're building. That would be awesome. I love meeting other people in that way. I'm a huge nerd, so I want to have as many connections with folks as possible. So you can email me at Kortney@well-money.com, but that would be the main way to get in touch with me. So
Awesome. That's exciting. I'm excited for everyone to dig in. I look forward to checking out the Well Money platform more deeply and contributing. Um, and Dr. Ziegler, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing having you, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you. It was great being on your podcast. It was great talking to you. And it was even much better learning that you're a cannabis advocate, consumer. And I want to keep in contact about the work that you're doing. And yeah, and share some good strains. So that would be cool too.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thank
Looking
you so
forward
much.
to it. Thanks for listening to this episode of People Are the Answer. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with friends, and reviews or subscriptions on your favorite platforms go a long way to help the show grow. I want to share these incredible people and their remarkable work with as many others as possible. Thanks for your support. For more, go to peoplearetheanswer.com.